Well, hello again. This one is going to be just a little bit different, but still about the Linleys Garden Railway. Some months ago I was invited to give a talk or sort of presentation to the Ickenham District Society of Model Engineers about the Linleys Garden Railway. So here's a slightly edited version of my talk. Hi, I'm Warren Brand and welcome to another Linleys video.
Welcome, Warren. Over to you.
Good evening, gentlemen in the house and virtually. Linleys Garden Railway, topic for this evening. I have a little bit of a structure to work through. Are we good?
Very good. Yeah. Is the sound all right online, gents?
Yes, fine, thanks.
Good.
Fine. So, running times, I understand you have a break at around sort of 9ish, so very much working towards it. I've got a lot of content to share. We can skip, you put your hand up, say skip, whatever you're interested in hearing about. I've got a story to tell. I know 9:55 is an important time, not just for you guys, actually it's important for me. So 9:55, what I propose to do is make it a little bit dialogue-y if we can, because you may well have questions that roll out of some of the things that I say, but I've kind of got chapters going, so I kind of would like to kind of get through to the end of a chapter because I might answer a question that you have in your head and then move on after you have a comment or whatever. Does that make sense? Yeah. So Warren, yeah, I've just retired. I'm 60. How old do I feel? Still 21. I'm 36 years in secondary schools, used to live very locally, just retired in the summer, and the idea is I've got more time for my railway. This project has been a long story. Okay. Some of the topics I'd like to cover, so this is like a brief index to get us going. Part one, I'd like to share some of the inspiration, where it all started. Just quickly, it's in my head, I'd like to share it. Some of the concepts and criteria about the design of my railway. The last part is very unique for me. So it's not just a typical garden railway, I believe. So about track bed and design and some of the engines rolling. So I've just got two examples here. You might be familiar with the LGB setup. I've got a slight range building, some of the infrastructure, some of the stories over time, many years, 20 odd years it's been going. Some of the track layout, I've got diagrams. Might not be interested, tell me, but I've got some track diagrams. We'll move on to the second part that really does focus on some of the more techie bits, to be honest. In my head, the way I've worked it, I'm really pleased with the way I've developed my control system. So I'm going to talk you through the DLC system. You won't have heard that before because it's in my head only. Nobody else knows about it. And it's true. It's true. And the block sections and stuff, some of that, if you're at all familiar with railway operation, you will get it. I didn't know whether I'd have time at the beginning to show you this video, so I'm just going to show you this just to get us going for a moment. It's too long to show all of it to you. I speeded it up a little bit because I wanted to just kind of get through some of the content. The sound is overlaid, over processed sound as well, recorded from the Bluebell mostly. Just one more bit and then we'll move on. all of that relates to one, what I would call station. There's no station buildings there, and what I'm not going to try and do is present like some complete finished article. It is very much a project on the go, 20-year project, and I've done about a fifth of it, you know, because, you know, life gets in the way, doesn't it? But I'm retired now, so hopefully I will be cracking on, and I'll tell you about some of the projects that I've got coming up. So here we go. Where did my interest? I'll just share a little bit about where I came from with model railways. It was a stitch up for my father. He was working overseas way back in '75, the Christmas of '75. My dad just standing as my son. He's a little bit older than that now. My dad, we bought him a Christmas present. You know, one of those Christmas presents for your dad. It was a family thing. We bought him a little box of Hornby stuff, track, and got it out, and it was great. And that started it. I think we all had an interest. Used to go to the Bluebell a lot, you know, big steam, and it absolutely grew from there. So my dad, it grew. He had a loft set. Mostly infrastructure, not a lot of modelling, and then when he retired and moved down to Eastbourne, he had this set up here, and we used to go down and enjoy a few hours in his shed running some of the trains that he would do. You can perhaps recognise the old 01, you're familiar with Hornby 01s? Absolutely moved into the tech, and it was great, but it was very complex. It was hard to arrive as a visitor and run the trains, because actually there's a lot of coding, a lot of movement, and, you know, it was in his head, and that was a legacy that I had in my mind. I'll come back to that later. Much loved by all, but way too complex to keep it going. And of course, as a single operator, you can't have too many trains running, and I didn't want that. Come back to that later. So in '95 here in Ickenham, I started, I didn't know I was going to move at that time. About '95, I started with an O gauge, very simple. It was kind of a C shape, concrete foundation, and it was really quite pretty. I was beginning to put some infrastructure there, but I got a new job, had to move. What a shame. And so I took the trains and track, but left the concrete, job done. But part of moving was making sure that the garden was flat enough. It was part of the requirements to make sure that, you know, I could roll that out and have another, and actually a better go. And I decided, because of the leaves, the O gauge was great, but I wanted the capacity to just be able to, you know, a bit more robust. So the G scale, you know, was the choice. So we moved in 2003, 20 years ago, and that was the garden that we had. And I don't know if you can see the little wooden stakes, but within months, I'd marked the garden out in terms of, you know, what I'd like to do. And I had the plan back 20 years ago, still working on it. And Linleys Garden Railway, the name Linleys is a very old name, nothing to do with a person. That's another story. So yeah, set to work bit by bit, busy job, busy life, young kids, as you see, you know, it was very slow progress. But within a year or so, got a bit of track down. That's the first bit, and it's changed a lot since then, actually a lot. But that was our start, and it's not a circle, it's a you'll see the track plan later. It's a C shape, and it disappears off. In fact, my daughter's feet you can just see on the side there. So there she is. She's not actually hiding, she's playing with the train that goes around the curve there. And there she is, having a go. Those years back, my son took part as well. Oh, another little video. This is back in 2000, there's no sound with this, 2005, I had a really cheap little camera at the time, stuck it on, it's very gritty, but it just gives it a go. And it's actually wrong way working. It looks odd for me, but it's wrong way working, but never mind. You can see I've already committed to more track distance. So I knew what I was doing when I was laying the track, and I'll go into the kind of track bed construction in a short time. So here we go, all the way around. The wrong way, actually, all the way around. No dog in the garden at this point. And we get back. Had a beard then too. How about that? Do you remember him with a goatee? Yeah. I don't remember. No.
Did you actually?
Yeah, 10 years out of Gator, yeah. Yeah. 10 years. And there we are back. And now it does indeed continue. So it's a there and back at that time. It's a starting point. Okay, so yeah, that's my boy playing with the train. I've got a couple of bits. I'd already committed to buying some LGB and other bits and pieces. And, you know, other people quite often take part as well. I was looking through my photos, I thought, yeah! So, 2005, a visitor. Wonder who that is.
Me.
So there we are, we're good on time. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, it's just where I've come from, really, and my house move. So let's dive into some...
Did you nicely slot it between the trees on that grainy video?
Yeah, the trees were there, and it was all mapped out with the posts. Absolutely. And I've stuck to that original design. I haven't got a photograph of it because the paper's fragile. It's on the back of my garage door. Going to talk about that incremental development now, the bit by bit over years to where we are. So whereas back there it's lawn and quite tidy with a bit of a path, and here I'd converted it to the same bit, lawn, bit of a path, I tidied all that up. Here, by now, so flicking backwards and forwards, here, some 5 years later, look at the mess. It's me digging it up, but there's a lot of groundwork that I've invested putting in as well. So there is a track now that goes across here, joins up around the back. A lot of digging and groundwork that goes in. So here now, just later on that summer, that's there. You can see that actually it does go across the path. There's a bridge that I've now constructed to put in there. But I wanted to get the track alignment round, so you can see bit by bit how things are kind of moving forward. That's still 12, 13 years ago. Developmental, not all the track is down. I think that's a posed shot, actually. I don't think I was actually running. I don't remember. But it was, snow, so, highlight of the moment. But it looks quite pretty, actually, doesn't it? So I use Pico FlexiTrack. It's all flexi. I know some people are happier using the clip together fixed curvature stuff, and that works well, but because my lines are sweeping and they're with my open garden design, to go between trees and stuff, I just felt I wanted to buy the flexi stuff. In a way, easier to handle because you're not constrained by the predetermined curves, but more difficult because you've got to cut them and pin them down the right way. I'm going to cover that a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with that track. You probably are. It's very similar to actually what you've now got on your raised bit. But they only make the flexi tracks of the 900mm, such example, the right-hand, left-hand points. I will need to make some diamond points, which I've committed to needing. I haven't yet moved into that. So let's look at a bit of the track sort of construction. It's fundamentally steel angle iron, 25mm angle iron around the whole track arrangement. A bit of a commitment, slightly expensive, but it enabled me to make adjustments as I was going. I could put it in, I'm happy welding, I'm happy using the material, so it wasn't a difficulty for me to sort of work with. And I could do the sweeping curves, I could get the gradients right and it would flex, and I could just make sure that you didn't get the kinks. Whereas in Ickenham, although it was mostly flat, once I'd set the concrete, it was pretty well done, and I couldn't readjust or recurve it at all. So the steelwork for me was the right way forward. There are arguments against it which I fully accept. To get me going, I used wood, the standard like fencing plank wood. It's the rough cut wood, cut in length so it goes between the sides. And that's lasted well. It's pretty well all rotten now, mostly replaced. But that's worked really well. I did paint it, and I just screw through. I'll show you how I do the fixing down as well. And subsequently I've filled in with some concrete. You can see here how I'm sort of working it out a little bit. There's the angle iron, obviously a 3-track width there, and the wooden planks. There's gaps here temporarily, unpainted as well. It allowed for that flexibility, and either on the ground with steel pegs, or I use these concrete blocks just to be adjustable. I put wedges in and readjust the curves. And there were occasions when I felt it needed to shift. I just got the big angle grinder out, cut a bit out, weld it together, and move along. Concrete, you're kind of fixed. Here's a point where I'd like to talk about why I'm on the ground. You can see all of my railway is deck, garden, flower bed level. In agreement with my wife, obviously, the garden railway was important, but neither of us wanted it like a dominant, you walk out into the garden and it's there. Didn't want that in a way. I mean, not to say that that's not a good thing. It's personal choice, isn't it? Want a red car, you buy a red car. Don't want blue, whatever. I, as well as my wife, didn't want that garden railway as a centrepiece. So quite a lot of the railway track is actually hidden. Now you might say, well, what's the point of that? But I've now got the zones which I want, and I'll come on to that a little bit later on. So on the ground, it's there and it weaves its way between the flower beds and bits. So it's for the most part on the deck. A later project is coming up a bit, and I'll explain that later on. So here's the bridge. It's actually a fairly recent bridge. I did this just during lockdown because I just needed a project at home, didn't we, at the time. So I rebuilt a bridge that I had previously made, welded it up. It's dark. It's not bright steel. What is it? It's not bright steel. It's standard mile steel. It's a bit more rust proof in a way. Welded up with guides and stuff. I'm fairly adept at the hard engineering, not the fine stuff. But that's a project that I was really pleased with, and more casted concrete here, etc. So I've got some wooden decking, and I'll be introducing a bit more wooden decking later on as well, in fact. So over time I am concreting the track bed that's well established in, and this is where I've got, just for the bridge abutments, really best in concrete. You can just see here I laser cut. It's a thing that didn't work as well as I wanted, but you live and learn. I laser cut some cardboard, like brick feature relief, so the cardboard is cut in the really fine little bits there, stuck on the inside, so it impresses into the concrete. It hasn't worked as well as I wanted. It was a lot of time wasted in a way, but I enjoyed doing it. But you can see I've still got the steel work that's there. It was a way of just formalising some of those edges again. So mix, slop and smooth, basic primitive stuff. And I just buy bags of cement and bags of sharp sand or soft sand. I don't do much at the time, and over time I've pretty well replaced all of it, but not all of it. That's me doing the round the back of the shed. I'll explain where that is later on. That's sharp sand, that one. So cutting the track, there's different techniques. I've tried all sorts. I've used just putting it in a vise in the garage, holding it, junior hacksaw, large proper size hacksaw, but I then bought a small grinding wheel, cutting disc, and that works really super well. Just do it on site with the track there, don't have to lift it up and hold it in a vise, cut, tidy up with a bit of a filing maybe, fish plates, join, done. It's really quick, so that's the way I do it. There are different advices for different things. So once it's cut, and of course each piece needs cutting, on a curve for the flexi track. All I do is drill through the sleeper, plastic sleeper. It's actually a masonry bit that's slightly wider, but the plastic sleepers are robust enough. drill through all the way into the concrete, whop a plastic plug in, and then just drive a stainless steel screw in. Every 200 mil, 300, 200, if it's on a straight and there's not much going on, maybe 300. If it's on a curve or it's approaching a set of points or something, I quite often do it every 100 or 150. It's whatever seems to be best suitable, really. I certainly get through a few. It works really well for me. People say different things. That's a temporary fixing. That track bed isn't painted. I do paint the track bed like a darkish grey, not for protection, of course, but just to kind of blend it down a bit. I haven't yet done any ballasting. We were talking about ballasting, actually, not the right sort of ballasting. I don't yet do any ballasting. You know, down the line I might. It's a bit of an extra commitment, isn't it? And at the moment I'm still kind of lifting track, putting it back down again. So, don't know. Living with that. So, bit by bit, 8:30, we're doing okay. You know, thank you for just listening to that bit. That's another chapter. Anything that I can comment on?
With the expansion?
Yeah, you know, that is a really, so there is that thing, expansion, worry about it. No, none.
That's fine.
I used to think, oh, do I leave it? How much of a gap do I leave it? No, I don't even think about it now. Partly because most of my garden is in shade, which has other problems. There are sections in direct sun, and even those bits, no problem at all.
I suppose if you're screwing the track down, if you're not literally screwing everything down too close together, the bends.
No, there's no sideways movement. No, even on a curve, it's pretty well down. I've never had any track popping out of the plastic shoes. No, not at all. No, I was worried when I started because, you know, that's British Rail has problems, doesn't it? So no, not at all. So let's talk about engines and things that I've got. I've just got these two, and I really don't have a lot of rolling or running stock, and I've not made any of my own yet. So I don't know if you're familiar with LGB, they're kind of toy trainy stuff. I buy... That's scary.
That's one of us that needs to go on mute.
Yeah, so I buy all of my stuff, pretty well all of my stuff off eBay, you know, not actively looking each week. I've got a couple of searches fixed, and if something comes up that I think I like at the right price, buy them. I have bought some duds before and I've used them for spares. I mean, they're relatively cheap, a couple of £100 and 50, 60 quid for a carriage. I don't go buying many. I've probably got 30 carriages and 8 engines over time. Some of them are little cheapy ones as well. Also, this example is Playmobil. That's an LGB loco, but this is Playmobil. They really do look like toy trains. They were toy. They were the cheaper cousin to the LGB, but they're the same scale, the same couplings, and they match and they partner up really well. They're all of a narrow gauge body sort of style and design. It's the LGB narrow gauge style. I've got one loco, which actually you were playing with way back, that's kind of mainline steam reel scale, if there is such a thing, standard scale. It couples up okay, the connections are okay, it doesn't go with the carriages I've got, but over time I'll explore more ways of potentially making my own UK type rolling stock, which I like to do. Southern or Midland, I don't know, either Southern, I like the green, or the Midland with the darkish red, I don't really know, but that's something to look at down the line. I've got some, these are Playmobil open wagon things as well. Just a bit of fun rolling along. They're a bit cheaper, of course. Do you know these very well? You're nodding avidly.
Me and my brothers built a garden railway.
There we are. Yeah, there we are. So, and you use these? Yeah. These have been around, I don't know, 30 years or so. More than that even, yeah. I think I've bought erroneously some of the older ones as well. Some of the newer ones have got sound and working lights. The older ones obviously just basically run, but they're usually really just grunt reliable, 22 volts, and they just usually just go, and the pickup, and they've got little pickup shoes as well. Looking outside of the idea of the rolling stock is the kind of other building fabric and the line side stuff. I haven't done at all very well. I've got lots of ideas, but time has been against me so far. Have I told you I've retired? So hopefully, he said, hasn't happened yet, but hopefully I'll be able to. So I bought some flat pack resin kit those years ago and put them. I haven't used them yet. I've built them. I kind of didn't like them very much in a way. They're very what they are. You can't adapt them very easily. Of course you can cut them and adapt them. So I never really deployed it. And I've used them in the garden. So I've just put it out there as a mock-up alongside one of the stations. But I've got the idea of potentially moving forward. I was given a present, leaving present of a few kit bits, and that's one of them. I haven't made that. That's off the website. So you can make them look quite good, actually, and you're probably more familiar with it than I am. It's something that I'd like to explore, but not kit form. They're expensive, and there's not much of an amount of flexibility, I don't think. So that'll be given out as well. So I've come up with some designs. This is me doing some sketches way back, based on northern range of Midland Railway, Settle Carlisle kind of stone and buildings. I bought some materials. I bought those months ago. Some clay for moulding, silicon rubber, and resin, so that I can make my own. But I haven't yet taken that step, but I will do, so that I can create my own in due course, because that would be the best. These are Playmobil, got some red sets here, little engine. So I've also got, obviously not just the track bed running around, but some height swap over. I wanted separated junctions. I've got a couple of separated junctions just so that I could get the flow going. I'll show you the diagram later. So I've got two tunnels. They're really short. This is about 700 mil, 800 mil long. Bit too long because I can't quite reach the leaves and the muck that collect inside. But it works okay, and it's very difficult to clean inside. I can't quite get there. I've got a little access hatch in the middle as well. But that is this particular one. You can just see some there. I used a bit of string and sticky tape and stuff just to get some rough sort of embellishment in the casted concrete. So just wooden shuttering. Chuck the concrete in, take the wooden shuttering away. It worked really, really well, and that's weathered down. That's probably about eight years old now.
So you can cast that portal then?
In situ. So I made up so that I could get the middle bit out. I made it out of cardboard, so that I could crush the cardboard and take it out. Quite a lot of sticky tape. But so the rest is plywood or whatever. I used MDF, I think, just because it's cheap and didn't need to be resilient for any length of time. So I liked that, but it didn't. This is rough concrete, and it's right at the back. You can't see very much of it. The other end of the portal is very similar. I liked it, but I thought here this is a bit more prominent. It's a bit more in view, and I just thought I'd be a bit more creative. Again, it was a lockdown project, so more time. So these stones are the granite blocks that you buy. If you're an earlier photo, you saw a lot of those granite stones. They're cobblestones. Yeah. Modern cobblestones. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So I use my angle grinder and cut little slices up. So cut slices and then cut them into little thirds and use them as little bricks. They're out of scale. It's not scale stuff, but it worked really well actually. So that's the cardboard inner. So once all this had set, I just bashed the cardboard out. It comes out really well, and it's a posed photo. But that I thought I'd put some flowers in. That was the weekend after I built it. It's now mellowed down really well. It looks much more sort of settled, as concrete does after a season or two. You'll see where that is later on, but there's a track that just goes over the top, just out of view there. So that's my bridge I built a couple of years ago. It's removable. It's quite heavy, but it's removable. I can lift it. I think over time I might not, but two people could very easily lift it, pop it to one side for storage, and then the path is through. And when it's in there, you can step over the end of it, so it's not too intrusive. Yeah. Other features I've just been exploring. I made this a year ago. Yeah, 2022. This is just wood. It's just softwood and MDF and thin ply, just to kind of get in my head some designs for this particular station area. So there'll be a station building here, which I've done some drawings of, which I showed you a little bit about. And I just wanted to see what it looked like before committing to kind of more resilient material, just heights and dimensions and, you know, all sorts of bits. Drawings are good, but 3D, and I just wanted to see it, and I'm really pleased with that. I haven't done much with it since, and that was a year ago, but you can see the platforms are cast in there now, and there'll be a station building at the back in due course. So that, although it's wood, can't leave it out because it's literally glue gun together, as fragile as hell. As soon as it was there, it just felt right. Doing okay. That's my son. Any questions about that? What do you think about some of those techniques? Challenge me. You know, we're learning, aren't we? I'm making it up as I go. I change my mind halfway through doing something, you know, just because you do, don't you? Shh. You know, I do the planning, I do the drawing, I do the working out, but actually you live by experience, don't you? You've got experience in some fields more than me, so you need to share. What do you think of the track bed idea?
Good.
Yeah? I mean, I know at the club just here, because I've had the great opportunity of enjoying it, it's a raised thing. It saves your back, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, too much of this down there, you think, but...
How do you cope with all the vegetation?
Yeah, I've got a leaf blower, I scrub.
Agent Orange or something?
No, I just use all sorts of washing up liquid sometimes. Otherwise, I just leaf blow, loads of leaves, tons and tons of leaves. Yeah. And I've got a scrubber, and I jet wash it. I just jet wash the track.
Really?
Just hard, full-on jet wash. Shh.
No,
Yep.
Because obviously the LGB, most of the stuff that we run out the back is either live steam or battery, other than the O-gauge.
Yeah.
LGB
Okay. So once I've removed the deep grime, and over the winter, I don't run anything between kind of late or even October, really, late October, through to kind of Easter, or even whenever really Easter. Partly with school holiday time, you know, just the capacity of being able to do anything. More flexibility now, but there is no point because it takes hours to clean the track. And I've got some old grinding wheels that I use. The cone ones, the ones that aren't flat, is the ones that have got like an inner dish. I don't know what you call them. Yeah. What are they called? They're not absolutely flat. They're the 4.5 inch or 6 inch. They've got the little cone. So with the cone bit, with the smaller ones, the ones that are worn out, you can't use anymore really. But flat, with a stick in the middle hole, I usually just a bit of pressure here and use this as you just rub across the surface. And I've been doing it, and some of this track is now 20 years old, and there's no degradation. I mean, it might wear down a few thou off the top, but I grind it hard, I rub it hard.
I think you've got a good reason for not wanting to put ballast down, in fact.
Yeah, for sure. If I ballasted, it would have to be resined or cemented down. Yeah, I can't lose ballast because I jet wash. Oh, some of the grime I get. I've got trees all around, so it's impossible. So let's look at the track layout, because I've shown you snippets, which is very disjointed, isn't it? So you know, I like diagrams, so I put this sequence together just so that you've got a bit of an understanding of kind of what the layout is. So we start off with that photo that I showed you right at the beginning, and it's on the left side. So the house, my house is kind of here-ish, and its fence is all the way around. There's a shed up here, which so this little bit here was the very first bit that I put in, this bit indeed. That circle was always there, so it was a feature that was always there. And it had more bushes and stuff around it. So that was kind of a, well, it was there, so I'll use it as a circle. And it's the right radius just about for me to be comfortable with this type of track. Obviously I then extended it as second viewing. And that's, yeah, well, the leaves immediately. I haven't included any of the leaves here, but the leaves, it's all trees above. And that's where it stopped for some time. I then laid more track bed and began developing it. And this is going around the back of the shed. So I've now got myself a loop, although at the time here, I knew that there would be a station. So in fact, the track bed is big enough. So I knew what I was aiming for. So round the back here, there's 3 tracks. So it's wide enough. Here actually there's 4, 3 down here. So at the time I was laying the track bed, I knew where I was going to move towards with the whole arrangement. The garden's got double track around the outside basically. So there are now, you can see 3 loops, 3 continuous circuits that effectively I could have 3 power controllers, 3 trains running, and I just watch them, and that's great. And that I've never had that all laid at the same time. All of the track's been down, but I've never run 3 trains on 3 loops, not yet. So even after 20 years, I haven't. I keep lifting it and moving it and changing, yeah, because that's what I do, painfully. So there's 3, but that doesn't operate as an integrated kind of railway. So the plan is, and I've had points there, but not the full sort of diamondy crossover thing. So I will need to make diamondy crossover. They're quite tight junctions. When I came up with the design, I was going to have a double point, so a standard kind of junction, out and then back. But I ran out of distance across here to get enough point lengths in. So I've committed now with the longer station, which is in the top there, before the curves kind of kick in, I don't have room for out and back type points. I need to have a tight junction. So I'm going to have to make them, and I can do that, but I haven't done yet. So I've got three station points. They're all in place now, no buildings, but 3 station points. So this is the main. It's got 4 tracks and it's got the junction. This is Woodgate Crescent. I'll show you a little bit more about Woodgate Crescent as well. And this is St John's. There's not a lot there at St John's at the moment. That's it, mostly. There is also a reversing siding that I've lifted temporarily at the moment, but that will be a reverser so that, I can run, if I didn't want to clean all the track, behind here it gets very bad in the winter, it's just tons of leaves. I could run a little loop around, reverse and back around through the crossing. I've got options. In addition, I've got the back of the garage is here. There's kind of like a side passage. So I've built a connection here. I've never run a train here, although I put the groundwork in probably 8 years ago. It just doesn't happen. So at some stage I will get that track in there with the idea that I can store some of the trains in the garage and run them out without me lugging them out in boxes, because they're quite chunky. Any one train's worth, I need 2 big boxes, and it's effort. And actually to run something, you don't want the effort, do you? You just want to enjoy the running. My son has always said, well, why don't you have any live steam? Well, it's on the ground. That's one of the reasons, and expensive. but it will be that I will get some live steam. So I've talked myself into, and my wife is more than happy with this, so I'm going to add, and this is part, see, she knows. I've got some mock-ups there, so she knows it's happening. I've got some plants to move. We've agreed where the plants are moving. So from here, this is going to go, well, I haven't done a bridge very clearly here. This is high, slightly higher level. So it'll be, at this, not up, not high, because I can't get that sort of gradient. But the garden falls this way, it rises slightly. So by rising slightly here, I can gain enough to, you know, work on some live steam without, I mean, maybe kneeling, but not actually lying on the ground.
Live steam preparation.
So this will be my live steam. Yeah. And then I can run my live steam. I'm likely, the diagram's not quite right. It looks as if it's coming in the garden a lot. It's not actually, but and I'm likely to include a turntable as well, which, you know, live steam you want to be able to run and then perhaps turn around and do. Nah, I'm working that out. I haven't. Yeah, could do. Is that
run in each direction, or is it?
No, it's direction of travel. Yeah. A single. I mean, they're multi-way here, but otherwise it's one-way working. And that's become very important with the control system because of the kind of style that I've got. There is no more space really, oddly. So that and I haven't even got all that going yet. So that will be it.
What's the bridge?
The bridge, yep. The bridge is here.
Right.
So it's just here. It's not really to scale actually. It's just across here. So the path comes the bridge with the So the bridge. Oh, these guys can't see where I'm pointing, can they?
Bottom left.
Bottom left with the yellow.
Just at the bottom left of the bottom station.
Yeah, and that's the round. So the path comes up and around to the circular bit. Yeah, yeah. The tunnel. So the two tunnels. There's a tunnel just here. It's not really clearly why it's a tunnel, but there's a tunnel there. The side of this is what I call studio. It's just I've got a wood burner in there, and it's just a bit of man space outside of the garden.
Isn't the whole garden man space?
Well, it is really. Yeah. Yeah. So, and the other, let me just then tell you where the other tunnel is. It's just here then, and where I was showing you where with the purple.
Top right, where purple.
Purple, yep. So that's looking. We were looking there with that lumpy bit of concrete there, and the other one I haven't shown you is the other side. So that's about 450 millimeters across. It's aspirational. I mean, please don't think I've got this sorted, because I absolutely haven't. I absolutely haven't. And that will be Vista Way station in due course.
The main circuits are in, aren't they? The main.
Yeah.
Main circuits.
Yeah. What are we doing? 8:45. Yeah.
Have you calculated what length you've got down?
I haven't. I was asked that a while ago. No, I haven't. No, you've asked me, so I will do that. And then just because you've asked me,
just
I haven't.
Fun of it.
Yeah, I bought track box by box by box, so there's been no counting of the number of boxes even.
That's possibly a good thing.
Which is possible, because it's not cheap. Yeah.
Is there one power supply for this lot?
I'm going to go into power supply. That's a whole big thing. That's a top score question, because I've got too much information for you about that. Here we go, control system and operation. So we've got kind of 10 minutes before coffee break, so I'm going to kind of keep going, crank it up. Right, this is where I hope I don't lose you, and it's a very personal preference. So I've got a picture of a steam engine driver. It could be any kind of engine, of course, but you generally, when you run trains, you are generally in your head a driver. Mm-hmm. You're not in the cab, or you might be riding on it if it's live steam and you're running around, but you are the driver. Yes? Yeah? Mm. Even when you're controlling multiple trains from a mimic panel or some centre point, and you've got your display, you are still a driver, and you, in your brain, you have to hop to drive that train, or no, drive that train. You might be doing one at a time. Or in my dad's system with the 01, he had multiple controllers. So although the power supply was standard, DCC, you could actually control multiple trains. But we, you know, because it's not a guy thing, we can't really multitask. And it's actually not really practical to control more than one train and really enjoy it, is my argument. And I kind of worked that out when I was going to see my dad's model railway, and he said, yeah, you have a go. You know, you invited me to, and that was great because it was one, new, easy, straightforward. But if it's busy and complex, you think, oh, I don't want to break it. I might have a crash, and then that's embarrassing. So there was always that level of apprehension. My kids never had that level of apprehension. But I did, because I'd grown up with the trains and stuff. So I didn't want to be owning a garden railway and operating it from a driver orientation. So I know that the driver-centred approach is traditional. Of course it is. But moving on from that, even with DCC systems, my dad moved into, from 01 to, what was the next step from 01? Lost the name now, damn it. No, it was another one that was by another company before. There's lots now. Oh, for goodness sake. Excellent controller, but it was still a DCC system. I know lots of indoor, most likely, used kind of a centralised computer system. Another inspiration was Beck and Scott. You know Beck and Scott, obviously, duh. We all know Beck and Scott. They have a centralised computerised system, but they can control things manually as well with their, it's all from West Ruislip, I think, is it? Or don't know where it's from. Their little mini frame. Yeah. So, having experience of DCC systems with my father, and I dabbled with computerised systems, it's still not what I wanted, because I wanted people to turn up to my garden railway and be able to have a go themselves. So, my approach is to be a signalman, not one signalman, because I've talked about multiple stations, to actually have multiple people who have control of their area. Now, okay, how the hell can you buy off the shelf a system that does that? No, not that I could find. Not 15 years ago, when this was, you know, really bubbling in my mind. I would labour over this. So around, yeah, 2010, might have been plus or minus a bit, I came up with this kind of decentralised control concept. And I've called it that, decentralised control. Decentralised logic control. And it's very much on this signal box approach. And the idea is, it hasn't happened yet, because I've only got one signal box functioning, because that's what it is. It will be able to have up to at least 4 people running probably something in the order of 12 trains. That, in my garden, 12 trains running either automatically or under the control of up to 4 people. And in my head, I think that's great. Without a lot of stress of needing to, oh, you know, is that one catching up? Is that one whatever? So how the hell have I done that? I've made it work, and this was the first sort of real life set that I've done. I've done probably about, bless you, about 10 versions over time. The whole railway is set on block sections. You know, it's not new business, is it? Railways are designed on block sections. So it's not something new. And again, station areas with a signal box. And signal man, as I was typing that, it's not very inclusive. Signal person is very much in charge of that area with mimic panels like this and indicators and inputs. So what have I got here? This is one signal box unit that is in the side of the garden. It's usually covered up, so it's not too intrusive, but it's the most intrusive visually. It is quite central. This is plastic. I spend an hour explaining how I've made it. And I'll talk about some of the controls here in a few minutes. But this control set of switches, mimic panel, indirectly controls the trains. Yeah, indirectly, not directly. There are no speed control buttons here. There's no forward or back control. There's no speed control, none. Because a signalman wouldn't do that, would they? They might, you know, calling on is different to going through, but... so how the hell do I do that? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about my interpretation? I'll explain more about the how bit to follow. We are going to finish at 9. Challenge me or question me, please, about the idea of being a signalman person rather than a driver.
So my question...
Because I've never explained this verbally to anybody before, apart from on YouTube. So I've never had the opportunity of having a dialogue with people who understand.
So as a visitor to your garden railway, my question, you said, well, I've done this partly because my dad's system had lots of trains running, but it's all very complicated. I'm going to have lots of trains running around, but it's all going to be really simple. Why is it that being a signalman is simpler than being a driver? Let's just
okay. Yep. I like the question. So I think it's simpler with the way I've done it, because with a signal box you can leave them all in normal state. If you know signal boxes, normal, everything's back in the rack, everything's flat back, and that's safe. Nothing's happening. Nobody's going anywhere. And the trains will stop by themselves. They will just all stop naturally. I can release. It's easy to train somebody. I can release a train at the station by simply switching one of the switches to make it go green. And it will be safe to proceed if, I've got a slide in a moment to explain about the block sections, if the track ahead is clear. That is my use of the word indicated control, not direct control, because that switch there, L2, control, let's not use that one, that's L2. Let's go signal 3, is that signal here. I could release that signal. I could move that switch. There's no physical interlocking, as would be in a mechanical, you know, can't pull it because there's locking. I can actually pull the switch, but it'll buzz. There'll be a buzz, and it won't necessarily turn the signal green. So that's my indirect control of signals, because there's interlocking. I'll come on to that. So I think somebody could come along, I say, well, make the train go, make it go green. And it's, you know, and then you can grow with that. And the trains will stay safe. System protection.
You set up to 4 people, but can you operate it solo?
Yeah, I can leave it on fully automatic. Yep, I can leave it on fully automatic. Yep. Yep.
How many trains did you say that you were aspirate?
I think, well, I've got the 3 main circuits, and I reckon I can have 4 trains on each, possibly not on the red line. Maybe I might only get 3. I've only so far run 2, to be honest.
I'm thinking of the flow. You know, have you got any kind of thought about the flow of the trains, given the signal?
No.
And their varying speed?
Yeah, they'll self-manage.
Right.
I'll explain how in a short time. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So I should be able to look in my garden with all on automatic, because there is an automatic functionality with this. I could sit with my beer, and it's a busy old garden without me stressing about it. Well, now then. And it's 9 o'clock, so if I may, I'm answering questions that I'm potentially going to come up to next. I'm going to give you a super quick, and I will revisit this slide. So I'm going to blow you away momentarily, let you time to recover, and then explain it a bit more after coffee, if that's all right. So I'm going to whittle through this and not take questions straight away, because we are going to finish. So, block section. I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, because we know what block sections are, but I need to use the term to explain my railway. So here's a piece of track. It's looking kind of at the side, not looking down. Direction of flow, that's great, but a piece of track on its own is useless. We have a train on a piece of track. We have obviously a continuous piece, right? So block sections have gaps, not actual gaps in the track, obviously, but they're insulated gaps. So the direction of travel is fine. I am not the driver, so I'm interested in the control of it via signal. Absolutely one train per block section. I mean, that's the natural, correct way of working. I will have to counter that slightly with the new live steamy bit because I've got some cross flow going on and I will be doing things differently, but I haven't worked that out yet. One train per block section, absolutely. The loco picks up power, well, you know the LGB, it's 22 volts or 0 to 22. So the train, got no batteries, and at the moment I don't have any multiple pickups, but leaves on the line and stuff, I may end up exploring multiple pickup. So the loco picks up from the track. The signals are controlled by the signalman, as I've already said. So red, the train will naturally stop. It will stop because of the system. I'll explain how in a short bit. The DLC system detects, and I'll explain more about how, the position of the train. It's quite blunt way. I mean, there are better ways of doing it than I do it, I'm sure, but it's worked and it's reliable, and so at the moment I'm sticking with it. The DLC system controls the power input to the track section. So each block of track is powered separately. There needs to be a synthesis between what voltage here and what voltage here, obviously, so that's part of the setup, because you can't have the train, you know, accelerating and no power here, because well, it would just stop, wouldn't it? But you know, you don't want that. So I've been very careful at getting the block sections in the right place and the control share, etc. At the point where the signalman sets the train, the signal to green, the train will accelerate, not just go full on. It will accelerate if the section ahead is clear. And if it isn't, the signal won't go green until the track section ahead is clear. So, there we are. 3 minutes late. Sorry, guys. I'm going to come back to that, and you will have questions for me. I'll explain how I do that in part 2, if you're interested. But that gets a bit more tricky and technical. I'll have to work it out myself. It's in my head, but I need to actually explain it to you. So coffee time, guys, yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent. If you get us on mute.
Thank you for that. Anyway, right. So let's just do a quick roundup. If you get fed up with me explaining some of the tech, just tell me to shut up, because this has been very much in my head for the better part of 16 years, and I don't talk to anybody about it. So, you know, it's nice for me to share. I'm going to emphasise some of the technology that I'm building behind the DLC system. So kind of here goes. So I'm going to show you this diagram once again, just because I'm going to springboard off it. So block section, linear direction, so I'm really trying not to have bi-directional. Of course, the return loop, the purple thing at the top, that'll be bi-directional. Different control module I need to design there. Linear direction, in and out through, one train per block, pick up from track power. People keep asking me, you know, battery operated, no. Live steam, by the way, is different, radio control, driver oriented, but you know, that's something I'll explore. Driver will just have to obey the signals. Signalman control, DLC does all the actual control. So any inputs from the signalman is indicated, request, rather than direct control of signals and points. And at any point, the system will not allow a train to proceed unless the section ahead is clear.
Well, you've got detects train position.
Yep.
Is that the position within the block section?
Yep, within the block section. Yep, just going to knock that off now. So, block sections. I needed some parameters for me to work through how to make this work. So some of the parameters, apart from the one train per block, I can't run trains longer than 2 meters because the back end of the train actually is not going to be protected. You know, the old tail lamp, I love the tail lamp in the corner there. I've got one myself. It's not in a nice condition like that. Do you know what the tail lamp function is? It actually protects the back of the train. There is no tail lamp idea. I haven't got that level of protection. The only way I can do it is make sure the train doesn't separate and the train is maximum 2.2 actually meters long max. The block sections a minimum of 6 meters. And a kind of operating maximum of about 10. The 6 is really simply an acceleration of about 2 meters, operating for about 2 meters, and a deceleration of about 2 meters. It's kind of to allow it to work the way I want it. The track provision is 0 to 22 volts, 1 polarity, and the section signal ahead protects. Right, there are track insulators between both sides, generally. Occasionally I've not done that, but for the most part, both sides. So each block section operates in its own way. It has its own power supply effectively and its own control set of modules. So the infrastructure built for one block section I have to make and repeatedly produce for all of the other blocks. I don't actually know how many blocks I will have. I've not actually counted that up because each block will take days and weeks to actually make the control, the electronics behind it. So this is the way the system works. Each train has a little magnet underneath. It's, you know, burglar alarms, the little black, the little white thing, the magnet and the thing with the 2 white wires. I bought a box load of them from China. So the magnets I've just blue tacked underneath, really tech. They kind of fit. Oh. There we are. Can you see that blue tack? That's it. Just enough clearance above the rail, so it works really well. The train moves through, into or through and out of a section. Its position is monitored and tracked 5 times in each block. The 5 seems to be just right. 4, and I did probably about 2 years of demoing and trekking. 4 just didn't give me the granular acceleration and deceleration control I wanted. 6 was becoming too many to simply build into the system. 5 was a fair, easy halfway house. So the 5, and I've labelled these, I needed to label them for my programming. Each sensor is the other half of the magnety thing. I needed more of the cable ones than the magnets, of course. So one is there, and this particular one I've called TIS, which is train in section. So it detects an entry of the train. In real life, train detection is done by shorting out across the rails with a battery supply. I don't know if you probably are familiar with that. Because the power comes from the 2 rails, I couldn't do it that way. I know clever places like Beaconscott detect their train positions differently. When I was doing this 12, 15 years ago, I mean, I do electronics, not high-level electronics, but I understand electronics. I couldn't get to a way of doing it without quite reliable reed switches. And I tried it, developed it, and it works quite well. So I've got a train in section detection, which is just at a predetermined distance following the signals. I've got a train arriving or a train approaching detector, which is about another 1500 mil, 1.5 meters along. I've then got a train final approach, which is a point at which deceleration really does begin to kick in towards potentially a stop signal train waiting. If the train needs to stop, it will arrive full speed. All train movements are full speed across train block ends. So I know voltages kind of share and balance, and because you've got multiple pickups, I just, you know, it needed to be that way. So trains travelling across block section joints, it's the same voltage, so it's effectively full speed. Train approaching, 1 degrade in speed. TFA, there's 2 steps, time steps of deceleration, and then progressively 1 more. Train waiting is a final cut of power, so the train will not go any further. In fact, it shorts, the relay short, so it becomes a dead stop. If a train misses detection at one point, the system will pick it up later on. I have had issues where, for speed or programming issues, detection hasn't happened. It will just then pick it up and the train will stop at the red light. If the red light isn't red, it's green, and there's no need to slow down, the train will whoosh through. The detection will still be taken, and the mimic panel will show the position of the train with lights moving across the board, but the train will just go whoosh through.
You said you had 5.
5, here we go. 5, that's the 5th. I'm just holding on, sorry, you count, that's good. So I've got a train out of section, which is, there's an overlap. You can see that actually there is a system overlap, because actually systems do overlap. So that one actually overlaps the first of the next section by a predetermined, I haven't gone into the maths with you and the distances, but yes, they overlap because that's what happens.
In practice, train out of section would come between train in section and train approach.
Absolutely. And the systems communicate with each other. So this block section is communicating with the sections in front and behind, so it knows what's happening with trains.
Could you double head with that?
Yes, as long as it's as long as it's within
simultaneously.
As long as it's within the 2 meters.
Yeah.
It would just trigger this twice, trigger that twice. It makes system. I know it accommodates that. I have, while I was developing it, because I made a bit of a sequencing mistake with my programming. I was missing some detections, and I actually put 2 magnets underneath to try and be a bit more robust with the detection. I've improved my programming, and in fact, the 1 magnet is enough.
Was train speed a factor in picking up this?
Yeah, it was absolutely. Yeah, and the height of the magnets. I would say it's a brute force thing. It's not very good. I've got, right at the end, I've got 2 developments that I'm working on. So that's what happens on the track and kind of what I aspire to do. And the way I do that, there's lots of different ways, is have a set of modules below the control panel. So let me just again go back to this, touched on this earlier on. So this is like the lever frame, yes? So cold light of day, the normal position, normal is a railway term, is all the levers back in the frame, and back is up. They're vertical, so it's the back is up. So I just go making sure they're all vertically up. With that, everything's red, everything's stopped, because that's actually what, in the signal box, that's, you know, normal point positions and stuff. So if I was wanting to release a train to go through, and I'm allowing it to, I would pull off number 3. I would pull off either of these two. These two control either the side or the through main. This is a bypass line. You can't pull both off. Well, you can do the switches, but you won't get green on both. If you do one, fine, the other one will buzz and it won't go green. And this one would pull off number 1. The trains go this way, so you work back. So pull off that, pull off this, pull off that. As long as the points are set correctly, the train will enter, white light, white light, white light, white light. 2 lights are concurrently on, sometimes 3. I'm changing my programming slightly, but basically you can see the position of the train. 2 white lights connected with each other. White light, that would go red as it passes, even if this isn't there. A white light, 2 white lights, train would go, and it would protect behind. So the lights would go from green to red. If there was a train following, it would protect. I can't, without showing you video, show you that working. I'll come on to how you might be interested in seeing that in a while.
3 sections.
This has got, on the panel here, yeah.
To 20 metres per.
Yeah. This is the station section. Well, there's two. It's not. This isn't the platform. This is a bypass. This is a station. So this is an exit. There's another section here which is fully automatic, and there's another section here. I think it's fully automatic. It might be controlled by Linleys. So there are adjacent sections that would feed into and out of the system. Yeah.
So how many of these boxes are there?
There will be 4. I've only made this one so far. The one I'm building, the big one for Linleys. That's a big project.
Linleys is the main station.
Linleys is the big one. Yeah.
What's Bell on this?
Okay, so we've got other things. So I plan to. It's good, well spotted. Because signal box communicate with adjacent boxes, I like the idea of introducing bell codes. So instead of, because Linleys station, if I'm at Woodgate Crescent here, Linleys is just at the back of the room, maybe a little bit further than that. You know, do you want to, I don't want that. I want to go ding, 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 ding.
Oh, Great Western practice.
Whatever, yeah.
Call attention.
Yeah, of course, call attention, ding. So I want to be able to do that. And I haven't, it's an empty slot at the moment. The back end infrastructure is there. These are other things. I've got, these are other switches for other power and bits and pieces. There is 2 here. Forget what B is, that's a bit more technical. There's SPG, my hand's in the way, SPG, stop, pause, go. So what I've included in the programming, if this was clear through, so all of these signals are clear pulled for green, and there's clear track, so all go green. As a train come in, if this was stop, pause, go, like a London Underground, it might have a green light, but it's a stopping service. The train would come in, decelerate, stop, predetermined or variable time, depending on what I feel like. I've done both in the programming, so there's a bit of uncertainty when it's going to start up again. The light would still be green, it would just stop because it's a stopping service.
So effectively it's
and then go.
Station dwell time.
Yeah, exactly. So I can leave stations on, stop, pause, go, and I just get some not running all the time. You know, things actually happen by themselves. The other ones, they're other bits and pieces which are boring to talk about. I won't be, the interlocking, I'll come on to interlocking, you can't pull points if the signals are wrong or there's a train, you know, it's all interlocked. That's an emergency stop. I haven't actually made that work yet. I haven't. You're laughing. I'm honest. I could say, oh, that's really important. No.
Don't tell the railway.
Don't tell. Yeah, I know. So the idea is that if it's something going wrong, separation of train or something's come off the line, leaves on the line, I can hit that. The idea is that it's a controlled deceleration across the, and then resetting it, it's a controlled acceleration. I haven't yet done the programming behind it. Just goes stop. It's a relay open, and really that's a bit blunt. And you can actually have more incidents because trains don't like just stopping, do they? So I generally don't use it. Work in progress. It's a software thing, not. It's a bit like the bell. I've cut the slot and done the business behind, but I need to catch up with some of the development. So these are signal repeaters. They repeat what's on the track side. I haven't designed any signals yet, so I've got no signals on the track. I haven't made any. I'd like to do some semaphores. I've got the skill, but I just need to, you know, do it bit by bit. But the important thing is, like I've already said more than that, these levers do not directly control the signals. They are not a direct control. No, there is no direct wire between this lever and the signal lamps. No. And I'll explain how I've done that in a few moments. So this is pulled, and yes, it is indeed green. If I pulled this, it wouldn't necessarily go green because there's a train potentially in the platform. I could pull them and they would go red and then go green after a clearance time, and you can see I've got distance signals as well. That's not to say that I'm going to have necessarily, if I went for semaphore, they would all be double semaphored and red. No, it's just an indicator at this level from a systems perspective. Right, point levers, they're interlocked, yeah, fine. I haven't completely finished the design of the point motors. I'm currently working on using a bit of a blunt instant thing, door lock mechanisms for cars, 12 volt. And there's a bit of a progress. They're not like boosh. They're a little bit motorised. I don't know if you know them, but they are a way forward, and they're quite robust, and I can encase them suitably for weather protection. Still working on that. Right, the DL system. I'm going to keep going if that's all right, and then you may well have some questions towards the end. We've got a bit more time. So the DLC system, for each block section, that might only be the length of a platform plus the 2 metres either way, there is a set of system modules that facilitate the outcome that I want. And those modules are in a plastic rack. I haven't brought them, maybe another time if I did, I could show you more at another time. I've got a picture of one. But this brain has inputs and outputs. So, I do systems. So, it's a standard input-output kind of thing. So from the mimic panel, a signal request, I'll put it in the term of a request, go green, signal input, clear the line, green signal, but it won't necessarily do anything. It just asks the system to do that if it can at some stage. Obviously there's point requests, and it will only do point movements if it's suitable to do so. The brain will make that, the interlocker will make that decision. There are other inputs that are kind of happening behind the scenes. There's obviously the train detection, those 5 points, but there's also block-to-block communication. So the block ahead sends information back, actually it sends it back 2 blocks to facilitate the distant signalling. It sends it back 2 blocks as well. It sends information back to the block in arrears. There's no forward messaging. I thought about it. I've never found that that's necessary. There's no requesting of access. The signalman would do that with the bell codes if that was needed. So the outputs, obviously, signal request input, an output is then managed, but not directly. Yeah, so obviously points, point movement might be requested, and a point control would be undertaken by this if it's suitable to do so. Not just train detection, but of course the track power level is managed completely automatically. Deceleration, continuous speed, staying stopped, accelerating, whatever, depending on whatever's going on. And of course adjacent block communication from a digital perspective as well. So that is what I aspire to arrange some 20 years ago, but 12, 15 years ago. Back then, when I was kind of coming up with this mindset, and my experience of electronics was traditional transistor stuff, I thought there's no way I'm going to make this transistor logic stuff. But PIC chips came along. I don't know if you know PIC chip technology. We talk about pies now, and I'll mention pies to conclude. So a PIC chip, this is a circuit board. I mean, it's just wired up, the clever bits, the programming. This is a 40-pin pick chip. You buy them just off the shelf. You program them and they run. It's got a boot program in it. It's not like a PC chip that needs an operating system that boots up with it. It has an inbuilt dormant operating system, pick chip operating system, that works when it's powered up to 5 volts. And if you power it up, it says, oh, I'm awake, I'll do what I'm programmed to do. And it will just automatically launch. 40 pins, a couple of power, a couple of signals, a couple of complex pins that we need to use. But a lot of them, I think out of 40 pins, I think it's about 33, 32, 33 are input-output. I can use them literally as input, output, digital 5-volt ons and offs. There are some bus communications which I've been dabbling with, but and they're about 5-6 quid each. So, you know, it's not a lot of money. I need lots of them, but actually they're not a lot of money. And I've enjoyed doing the programming. They're pick chips. There are smaller ones. They don't make bigger ones. There are occasions when I could really just do with 3 or 4 more pins, but I've been creative. They are reprogrammable, so I can, if I feel that my program isn't quite right for a particular block, I can plug in a program cable, bash a new program up to it, run it, and I've done that in development hundreds of times. Mounted on a little board that I've made, standard strip board. You know, familiar with strip board? And the block connectors here, just that I can interchange these as I want. I've standardised as much as I can. I do use other boards. These are standard little relay boards with some separation and bits, and these are the power cables to the track. I could go on for hours, but I won't. I've made all of my modules fit within, it's hard to see, this is like a C-shape plastic acrylic C-shape. So this is, you can see me just about holding it there. I could have brought one along, but I didn't. Sorry. So these are standard, and they're racks of them that fit underneath in the box. So each section needs one of these, plus an integrator, an interlocker, power controllers, many modules. So it's quite a lot of infrastructure that's hidden behind the scenes. I mean, that's just one page of programming, you can't even read it, but pages of programming. So it's kind of its own form of BASIC. So it's low-level language, it's high-level language, depending on which way you look at it. It's words. I started learning BASIC, BBC BASIC, 40 years ago. So, you know, I enjoy it. If you program, you laugh at it. I'm not an expert. I used to teach programming, but I'm not an expert. And you trial and error. Timings, different timings, you know, different sequences. Stand on the PC, use a laptop, little plug-in cable. It sends a new version of the software up. Try it, doesn't work, have another code, have another go.
How does it behave if it doesn't get a signal from trackside?
There are circuit bits for protection.
Does it need to see them as sequence?
No. Oh, it needs a logical sequence. If it has a detection right at the end, and the relay will just stop.
Yeah.
If it has missed detection down the line, the last one, it could sail through, but it's unlikely. I've not found that. So just a little bit of trackside stuff. So I've talked about these little reed switches. So underneath the track, I've cut grooves in the concrete, and I've made bundles of wires. Bless you. Bundles of wires. And you can see the plugs, the track's been down once, I've lifted it, etc., etc. And you might say, well, wires, water ingress. Yeah, you asked me about expansion. Yeah, it's very mindful of soldered wires taped up with electrical tape in a trough that potentially fills with water.
Oh, God.
Well done, Dunning.
Sorry. That's fine. whatever. But you know, the reality, I've not had a problem. I've had some of these fail even. You know, is it because they're weathered or they got hot? I don't know, not many. So no, I've tried it, left it, tried it. Nope, all is fine so far. Although, you know, there's another winter out there now, and what will it be like in the springtime? But some of these have been out 5 or 6 years, even a little bit more than that. So most of this is hidden because the track basically covers it up. So this is sort of surface level cabling, although surface as in most of it's hidden, because I just didn't wire all the wires around. Yeah, it's untidy.
You cut the groove in the concrete.
Yeah, angle grind. Yeah.
Angle grinder, you got
track goes on top.
In the groove.
Yeah.
Is there something over the top of
The track. The track literally straddles. In fact, if you can see the dirty marks, that's the sleepers, and that is
underneath the veil.
Yeah.
You can't actually see the.
Kind of. Yeah. Because that's the middle of the track, so it's kind of under the rail, and I usually leave it on the platform side, as it were. So they're yeah. It's not fully the case, and sometimes you can see it, but it's grey paint and black wires, and usually full of muck. So you know, if you look at it, you'll see it. But generally, it's not a whole load of festoon of wires around. I just didn't want that. In fact, I absolutely wanted not. That works for local cabling, but no good for some of the signal box connections, because some of the wires are more multi and I've got more going on. So as part of the chaos that I created back in an earlier photo, this I only did a couple of years ago, which was the last main connection between this, you can't actually see it up here, there's a big control box going on the side there, between this section, Linleys Station, and here, which there's another intersection. That's 110 pipe. I just bury in the ground with a drawstring, pull it through. You know, BT cable like in the road, really. So bury it over the grass. I know it's there. Hidden. Here the water, I've generally got them going slight banana downward. So if there is any water ingress, generally it flows out. But the ground, it doesn't go soggy too much in Fleet just here. It's quite a dry ground. Right, we are doing well. Actually, we're doing very well. I might get an early pint. So what I'd like to do, you may well have some questions. So let me just share with you what my next little round of aspirations are. Finish some blinking stuff, Warren. Don't keep doing new stuff. Finish some of the stuff you've started. Somebody telling me that. Yeah, isn't it a voice that we should tell ourselves a bit more? Oh, I don't know. Started. Why start that when you haven't finished that yet? But the brain is working on new developments. However, so this is a rather long list of the things I really need to just bloody finish. Install more system modules. Yeah, it used to be the idea that during the winter time I'd do some soldering in the garage, make a load of modules and install them in the springtime, use them in the... No, garage is a mess. I've got some more buildings to make, really aspire to... I've got a present for some kits. I need to do that because, whatever. I need to really work on more track work, funny that. I've got this idea of the yellow line and new slightly higher raise, because one of the things I'd like to do is get some live steam, especially come and see your setup. That was about 18 months ago. That was the inspiration for me to say, Warren, you want live steam. I don't know if you saw that video. Yeah. So I've got some new bits to add. I'd really like to be able to make some stuff. I've got the skill set. It's just really assigning the time, more than 5 minutes briefly in between doing other stuff. And I mentioned the live steam. So that's kind of, you could work that out without me writing it down. There were a couple of things that really have come to mind as real developments in change developments rather than finishing things off. So in liaison with a good mate of mine, I go walking in Italy with him a lot. I've known him 20, 25 years. He likes electronics, and slightly older than I am, he has had more time over a longer time to play with electronics. And he recently has been trialling the use of some pulse width modulation modules that potentially, not potentially, would control track power in a far better way than the brute force resistive control that I've done. So the relays that I've got switch in and switch out resistance packs windings, which is what the London Underground used to do. Big things with resistance wires and stuff, resistance block underneath that generated a lot of heat. That's how they used to do it. There was no other technology back at that time. But pulse width modulation is a much finer, more delicate way of controlling power to a load, a heavy load. And there are ways forward. I'm going to explore that over the next year or two. I've often dabbled with the idea of being able to have the system run automatically, which I've included as I've explained. But if it's a stopping service to go through a station, but if it's a freight service, I showed you that line with the bypass, or one of the stations with that bypass line. So a stopping service could absolutely use the platform logically, but a freight service, or perhaps a faster train, a non-stopping service, would be detected as a type of train, and the system would reroute the train around and continue on. There's some logicality with that, rather than relying on the signalman. Of course, in the purest senses, you've got a couple of signalmen doing belcos with each other, you pass a train on, wouldn't you? So actually, that's the best. But if I was wanting to sit in the garden with a beer, watching trains kind of manage themselves, I quite like the idea of using RFID tags with an RFID set of readers at key positions to detect the type of train with a train ID and send that back to the system. Now that my mate has dabbled with that with their modules, but he's used pies. I don't know if you know what pie, little, but they're not very expensive, but I would potentially need quite a few of them, and I haven't yet kind of explored that. But I like IT, I like electronics, so I quite like the idea of those two developmental projects down the line. With that, he's also done, using mobile phone and Wi-Fi, the ability to control not granular signals, but perhaps make some overall control from a mobile phone, so I could actually sit with my beer and not have to get up. Not to spoil the concept of partnership between signalmen, but if it's just me in the garden and I've got my beer and I think, well, actually I want to stop that train, actually that signal I can just, yeah. So I quite like the idea of that as well. I may never do that, I don't know. I really need to finish off this stuff first, but hey, yeah. I've just got one little kind of self-promo thing to wrap up with. Have you got any questions for me about all that mumbo-jumbo about control?
I love your idea of RFID.
Yeah.
You're going to a whole new different level.
I am.
Because you're going to have to sequence on section to section, train identity.
Yeah. There's a lot in that.
A lot of cabling.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. It will be RFID quite localised within like a junction point. Yep. Not sure. It's there. I like the idea of thinking about it, but part of all of what I've enjoyed doing is the designing and planning. I've enjoyed the designing and planning and problem solving probably more than the actual doing, and that's why I've ended up with a garden full of stuff that isn't quite complete yet.
So there's all the cables in there for the actual signals?
Yep.
Yeah. In the correct location?
Yep. A lot, not all of it, and some of the stations are newer built that I still need to do. Yeah.
So then the wires you were putting under the track, There's capacity in that.
I make those bundles of wires. So depending on they're all unique, they're all bespoke lengths, and so they're bundles of standard fine wire, connection wire you buy, you know, on the drum. Not single-stranded, they're multi-stranded, but they're single wire. And I bundle them together, twist them, and then I wrap them up with electrical tape, black electrical tape. Windy, 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 windy. It's painful, really, but it's, you know, it's okay. I string them down the garden. There's a core nylon string, but it's strong string that I tension as a core. So, you know, I just don't break my back about it.
How much of the overall rail at the moment is controlled?
The working bit, it won't work now over the winter period, but the working section is from basically here around the station. You know the video that I showed you a little, that section currently is complete. The points don't work because I haven't yet made the point motors to my level of reliability. Still working on that.
How's your reversing siding going to work?
Yeah, so I've designed another module. It's all kind of modular. So there'll be a module. I've done the logicality behind it, but I haven't done the programming, that will detect a train coming in and stop it, and then through Sigelman release coding to release it, it will then reverse back.
Does it need to know the train length, or does it just need
It will go to the end. It will detect up back from a buffer stop as if it's a red light.
Yeah.
So even if it's a short little loco that needs to just clear the points, it will go to the blinking end. Yeah, because yeah, the level of control that I've got won't, until perhaps potentially RFID, single loco, but that's a long way down the line.
use train length, yeah.
Yeah. It's different.
It's fun.
And you know, it's not completely unique because Beck and Scott do it. I was on the Isle of Wight. I think that's much more primitive. They've just got single track length. So there's an Isle of Wight model railway. I forget what it's called. Little thing. I don't know if you've seen it. I was only there a couple of weeks ago. Oh God, that's right. God, something like that. Yeah, it's really nice. Small version of the Beck and Scott, really. But I think the lines are. I don't think there's any junctions or anything. I think it just kind of works. But they stop. The trains stop automatically, just at the right point. It's really clever. And really, Beck and Scott got me thinking about the reason for me doing some of this, as well as the experience of me playing with my dad's trains. Yeah. I run a YouTube channel. I don't know whether you've seen the the video that I did. Well, I don't know when that was. 18 months ago. Must be. Time disappears. I really enjoyed that day, and we talked about potentially something else to follow. I am not suggesting you subscribe to my channel because there's some stuff there you're just absolutely not interested in. But there's potential. Well, I do pub crawls. I do trekking, Italian trekking, wild camping, stupid stuff, you know, stuff that you're just not going to be interested in. But almost all of the photos graphics that I've shown you, I've taken screen clips from, or bits from videos that I put up over time, particularly only the last 3 years or so. So none of the older stuff. So there's a whole bunch of videos about what I've just told you, but perhaps in more detail and at different points, and shows you other bits and pieces. And also, the last year or 2 years, I've been really actively going around the country wherever I can, looking at heritage railways and doing like a little. I don't do on-screen vlogging because I don't feel comfortable talking and vlogging, and people do sometimes. It's intrusive, I think. So I do a load of video pans and then do voiceovers. It kind of works. I got some critical feedback and some positive feedback about them as well. So if you're interested in kind of heritage railways and perhaps my interpretation of a visit and a bit more detail, different details, other stuff, other pictures about my my garden railway. There's a playlist there as well. Pub crawls might be your thing as well. That's not drunk and kind of rude pub crawls. Just they're very popular actually. My pub crawls. Yeah. Look, I said 5-2 and I've whittled on. I've spoilt it because it's now 3 minutes to 10. Look, hopeless brand.
Oh, that's Greenwich. We're a bit further west.
Time for a pint.
Excellent.
Very good talk. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, there we are. I had a most enjoyable informal evening as a guest at the club. Hope you enjoyed the recorded version. Thanks for watching and bye for now.